What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Pokemon Theory, where I like to take a look at some of the interesting theories and mysteries that appear in the Pokemon world. From Ash being a clone to the legendary beast being related to Eevees, there's tons of crazy Pokemon theories out there to take a look at. I know that I cover a lot of theories focusing on Generation 5. Like, a lot. So today I wanted to mix things up and talk about a theory pertaining to a group of legendaries from an earlier generation, the Regis. In this video, I want to talk about the possible reasons for why exactly the Regis were created. Before we start looking at what purpose the Regis were potentially created for, let's look at a little bit of the Pokemon world's mythology and history surrounding them and their creator, Regigigas. Even though the three Regis were first introduced in Generation 3, a whole generation before Regigigas was seen, Regigigas, at least in the Pokemon world's mythos, is technically the first and original Regi, and existed long before the original trio was created. One of the legends about Regigigas says that it pulled continents with ropes in the ancient past. No, you didn't hear me wrong. This Pokemon is allegedly so strong that it was able to move continents around. That's definitely a powerful Pokemon, and it brings up some interesting questions regarding how exactly Regigigas fits in with the creation of the Poke-Earth. Getting back to the topic at hand though, an unknown amount of time after Regigigas was showing off its muscles and modifying land masses, it created the three Regis that were first introduced in Generation 3. Regirock, Registeel, and Regis, aka Regice. At this point in time, some of the ancient people started worshipping Regigigas and the three Regis that it had created, and I mean, can you blame them? Regigigas had showed that it was a being of immense power by both moving the continents around and by creating three brand new Pokemon, which is a feat that only Arceus before it had ever done. According to one of the ancient legends about Sinnoh, a volcano erupted near Snowpoint City and turned the surrounding forest into a lake of fire. Luckily, Regigigas and the Regis were on the scene and rolled out to stop the eruption and save the city. After shutting down the volcano, Regigigas turned into stone and fell into a deep sleep. This is where things start to get a little bit interesting. The ancient group that was worshipping Regigigas and the Regis decided to seal them all away due to them fearing how powerful they were, even after they had saved them from the volcanic calamity. They sealed Regigigas inside the Snowpoint Temple, and the three Regis they had created in various points around the region. All of this ancient history definitely brings up a lot of questions. Why did the ancient civilization suddenly turn on the Regis even after they saved them, and why exactly did Regigigas even create lesser Regis? The thing is shown that it's pretty strong, at least in the legends and myths about it, and even Space Stats put it into the top 15 strongest Pokemon. Why did it feel the need to create smaller, almost minion-like Regis? I believe both of these questions could be answered with a possible theory. Now, brace yourselves, because this is going to sound kind of crazy, but what if the reason Regigigas' worshippers turned on it, as well as why it was making Regis, was because it was trying to create an army of Regis? I know this sounds insane and pretty improbable, but just bear with me while we go through all of the evidence that supports this theory. I'm not saying this theory is right or even likely, but there's definitely a possibility that the Regis were created to be soldiers used to form an army for Regigigas. Regigigas is the creator and the trio master of the Regis, and one of its biggest abilities is that it's able to control the Regi Trio. The Regis can still act independently, but whenever Regigigas wants to, it can assume control of them, which we've seen happen before in the Pokemon anime. I feel that this fact alone is pretty significant to this theory, because if Regigigas could control them to do anything it wanted, it could potentially use them as mindless soldiers to wage war with. One of the big clues that possibly points to the Regis being created for the sole purpose to act as warriors is their Pokedex Descriptions. Each one of the Regis has a very interesting entry that describes them. Regis's ice can never be melted, Registeel's body is made up of a material harder than any metal found on Earth, and Regirock is able to repair its body using any type of rock that it finds. When compared to things other legendaries do, the abilities the Regis have aren't too impressive, but keep in mind that Regigigas made them this way. If Regigigas indeed wanted to use them to comprise an army under its command, it would make sense to create them with such strong characteristics. If a Regirock could heal itself just by using rocks in the surrounding area, then it would make an excellent soldier. Same with Regis never being able to melt, and Registeel being impenetrable. Another piece of info that could relate to this theory is that there are actually multiple groups of Regis spread out across the Pokemon world. There's the original trio in Hoenn, there's three more in Sinnoh, there's even another group of them deep underneath Unova. It's also worth noting that each region that contains a trio of Regis also has a Regigigas there alongside them, which makes sense considering that Regis are only made by a Regigigas. With the Regigigas being able to manipulate and control Regis, it makes me think that Regigigases are almost like commanders in the pseudo-army. With them having the ability to make new Regis, aka troops, and also being able to order them around, it's possible that they were in all of these different regions preparing for the proper moment to strike the region's inhabitants. A potential Regi army could also explain why the people who were worshipping Regigigas and the Regis turned on them. Surely they must have seen how powerful Regigigas was, and once they found out that it was building smaller Regis and attaining even more power, they must have decided to seal all of them away from the world before any kind of conflict happened. Now, you've probably been wondering since I proposed the theory of Regigigas creating an army about why exactly Regigigas even saved Snowpoint City in the past if it was planning on conquering regions. Well, there's a couple things I think could have possibly happened. This could be a classic Iron Giant scenario where Regigigas, although kind of a robot monster thing, actually has a heart of gold and was willing to save the city out of sheer kindness. Yeah, that doesn't sound very likely. What I think is a little bit more likely and ties into the theory is that it was fighting another Pokemon and inadvertently saved Snowpoint City amidst the battle. There's plenty of Pokemon that cause volcanoes or heat-based eruptions, so it's not outside of the realm of possibility to think that Regigigas was trying to protect its own turf. Perhaps it was fighting Heatran over who would be number 486. Anyways, this has been another Pokemon theory on what the possible purpose of the Regis was. Keep in mind that this is just one of the many theories on this topic, and there's most likely other, potentially more likely theories out there than this one. I'm curious to hear what you guys think the reason the Regis were created for. Perhaps you agree with me in thinking that they were possibly made to be soldiers, or maybe you think that Regigigas was just making enough so that it could play a basketball game with even teams. Feel free to share your own thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.